I would certainly see jockeys as elite athletes because of the physical demands that 2 or 3 minutes of racing exposes the human body to. I think people forget how strong a horse is, and to control that horse requires enormous strength. But not just the strength, it's also the ability to know what to do and to have the tactical awareness, where you have to control another animal and also be aware of what everyone else is doing.
Two up-and-coming young South African jockeys, both just 24 years of age, are Gavin Lerena and Musi Yeni.
I love it. I really, really love it. You know, from a young child, I've always wanted to be a jockey.
I'm very fortunate. I love what I do. The technicality of how you rise, how you structure. I enjoy working with the horse, especially in a race. If you can get a firm understanding how he wants to run the race, and if you two can click.
The thing I love most is winning, and I mean, nothing can beat winning. When you pass that line first, whether it's a maiden plate or winning the Gold Cup on Airsland, it's just passing the finishing line first. That's the thrill for me.
But there's another component that perhaps has been overlooked, and that is that when a runner goes to the start of a race, he or she knows that this is a race over 1 mile or 100 miles. Now the horse actually doesn't know what distance it's going to race, and the only key it can get must be coming from the jockey. So the very best jockeys are able in some way to give that information to the horse as the horse is racing. Unlike most sports, the jockey has this additional problem that they have to keep themselves very light, but they must be very strong. And that requires another level of commitment as well.
I think it's very stressful. I don't think most people realize, especially when you are traveling quite a lot, it takes a lot out of you. But being a jockey is a different skill, obviously, to other sports. Normally, I race about 4 or 5 times a week. I think that's enough to keep me in shape, and I ride a lot of work if I'm not racing. Obviously, I gotta also watch what I eat. Mentally, too, to be a professional, you gotta set goals, you gotta live to a certain standard and stay focused.
Controlling a horse and contracting your muscles for 2 to 3 minutes is hard work. So it's repetitive, high-intensity bouts of exercise, which will cause fatigue. So they have to be strong enough and physically fit enough to race the 9th race with the same physical strength that they started at the 1st race.
Staying fit for race riding, look, there's nothing like to be racing fit. You can ride 20, 30 horses a morning in work. You can run 10 kilometers a day. You can swim 100 laps. There's no fitness like race riding. And I run, if I have to, on race days on the treadmill to take off a bit of weight. I enjoy swimming laps to get my aerobics going, but there's nothing like race riding.
But when you get out into a race, there are huge psychological demands because of the fact that you're dealing with a large, robust animal that is very powerful, and you're in close quarters with other people, and you've got to plan ahead for what is happening, and you've got to be thinking all the time and not be intimidated by what's going on. So there's a whole range of skills. So there is, yes, there is a real risk of serious injury. You have to be brave to ride a horse in a race. That's another component.
Stud farmer and world-renowned golfer, Gary Player is the only person ever to have completed a Grand Slam on both the regular and international senior tours. One of South Africa's greatest sporting ambassadors, Gary Player knows better than most the pride felt when putting on the Springbok blazer.
To attain success for your country is very important. So when you get a Springbok blazer and you recognize there's somebody who did that, it is just a great, great thrill.
Two of South Africa's most promising young jockeys, by age 23, both Gavin Lerena and Musi Yeni had earned their Springbok colours. In November 2009, Gavin Lerena was awarded his Springbok blazer when selected for the team representing South Africa in the International Jockeys Challenge.
For me it is, to put this blazer on, it's really, really amazing. It's one of my biggest highlights of my career, and you know, to get called up It was a big surprise, and it was just an amazing day.
Representing South Africa and getting the better of the likes of Frankie Dettori, Gavin won 2 of the challenge races and took the Victor Ladorum for the overall event. The following year, Musi Yeni was awarded his Springbok colours when he was elected for the team to represent South Africa in the 2010 International Jockeys Challenge.
Being a Springbok is a great achievement, especially being so young, and to be elected to be part of the best senior athletes of my time, and I was very fortunate to be part of it. It's just something that I was very proud of to achieve.
For Musi, it was a truly memorable event as he took the Victor Ladorum for the Highveld leg of this international tournament.
All great athletes have a psychological advantage in some way. They understand themselves better than anyone else, and they're able to control their emotions and motivate themselves better than the rest of the athletes that they compete against. The jockey has obviously got to do that. He has to be up for each race, and that is difficult when you race frequently. So the best jockeys have to be able to motivate themselves.
Look, it's always stressful. It's just how you handle your stress, and I just like to take one step back, put myself in a little bubble and keep to myself, and just try to think the race over and what things could happen in the race, or what I'd like to do in the race, and where I'm going to be in the races, so that the time of the race, I've already written the race in my head. I just got to go out there and do it.
The best jockeys have the capacity to see the race happen before it actually happens, so that they know, either because of their experience with different jockeys and different horses, they can see the way the race will develop even before it happens. And in all sports, that's critical. The great athletes see what happens before it happens, and they know where they must be before it happens.
In 1988, Barty Leisha, at age 24, became the first South African jockey to go abroad for a season and take an international title. Dethroning the legendary Tony Cruz, Barty Leisha took the Hong Kong Jockey Championship for the 1988 season. Since then, many other South Africans have followed. Dougie White, back in South Africa for the Durban July Handicap, has taken the Hong Kong Jockey Championship title for the past 11 successive years.
In our studies, for example, we find that the best athletes have the highest emotional intelligence, and that's the ability to deal with people. And that's what makes people appealing and having long careers. The greatest athletes are the charismatic ones. If you meet Gary Player, you'll see this the most positive person you've ever met in your life. He's positive and charismatic because he's got this emotional intelligence. He knows how to deal with people, and that allowed him to become successful. So emotionally intelligent people make the right decisions. They know what's good for their sport and what's bad for their sport, what's good for their health, and they repeatedly make the right decisions. And if you make enough of the right decisions, you eventually can be successful. And of course, they marry the right people and they stay married for life, and that's very important. And the same applies to jockeys. To make a long career, you have to have a very, very stable family unit to be successful.
South Africa raw, best gift ways aboard, iridescent gets the win ahead.
If I were to look at horse racing, I would guess that there are probably 20 countries or so that put a lot of effort in. But the difference is that the amount of money put into the sport is astronomical into horse racing than compared to any of the other sports we've discussed. And so therefore the competitiveness has to be much higher. For example, these very expensive races in Dubai and so on, where that's the acme of competition. You can imagine that to get there, to compete, you would have to be one of the top jockeys in the world, because otherwise people wouldn't invest that amount of money in you. So I have no question that a jockey who earns international status is at least the same level as any other international sportsman in this country, because that has to be the nature of the competition.